This is the Wandering Mike.
Welcome everyone to the Wandering Mike. Today I'm here with Aidan. Hey Aidan, what's up?
Hi.
Having a good day so far?
We good?
Nice. Looking forward to our talk. Get us started. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Just tell us where you're from, what's your background, anything you want to tell us about your journey. So,
Okay. Again, I'm 8. I'm almost 22. Um, I'm from the United States. I grew up just north of Atlanta. But I was born in the DC area. Moved when I was 3. And so I lived there, and then I went to college, like right after high school. Um, I left about 2.5 semesters in to go stay in Japan for a couple months with one of my friends. And then I came back, finished my degree, and in August, and then about 2 weeks after I did that, I came to New Zealand. And I've been here for just over a month, maybe a month and a half. Uh, and yeah, we're in the Addington jailhouse right now.
we still are in the Aidan Jailhouse.
Yeah.
The listeners probably know by now that's where I've been recording.
Mhm.
Probably one of the 2 or 3 last episodes that I'm going to record here, or I'm off to Queenstown. But yeah, uh, we're still here. So yeah, the one question everyone gets asked is, "What is your dream? What is your dream in life? Your goal, like sitting right here, right now? What would that?"
My dream. Yeah, it's kind of taken like different forms for sure. I'm still like super young.
Yeah,
And I believe it's gonna change more as well. As I don't know, as things happen to me as I do things. But um in general, I think I want to learn as much as I can about the world, about where I am. It's there's too much to for you to be able to know everything, I think. But um I think and going out and doing that through a mix of experience and also my own um internal like rationalizations about certain things. I think just spending your entire life being inquisitive about everything is absolutely the best way to live, or like the most enjoyable way to live for me, the most fulfilling. And if I just hold fast and true to that, I don't know. It'll take a different form. I'll have a different way of explaining it, but I think generally that's what I've always wanted to do and what I've tried to do. There's no set thing that I'm looking for. I'm not looking for a specific job or a title or anything like that. There are things I would like to do along the way, but those all follow, core maxim, I think. So,
yeah, I feel that's a great way of going towards it, and I feel personally that's a great dream to have, or like a goal rather. Um, so we mentioned your trip or whatever you want to call it to Japan. And we talked about you coming to New Zealand now, where we obviously met here in the jailhouse. Um, what other things than going abroad would you say you're doing to go towards that goal, that dream? Like learning as much as possible, being inquisitive. Like, how do you think you shape your life so to get to that point?
I mean, I don't think it really depends on where you are,
Mhm.
um, to be able to do something like that. Not in and of itself. I think in certain places you have access to more resources that would like allow you to do that more easily, but you can always make an attempt at it, like using what you have. And um, I don't know. There were times where I was like, I was like trapped or like physically trapped or something. Not like someone holding me hostage or anything, but I didn't have the freedoms that I have now. Um,
Mhm.
and even then, it's more just using what's available to you and trying to figure out where you are. Um, if that makes sense. Just kind of like being or like mindful and aware of like how things change in your environment. Um, because there have been times too where like I feel like months just go by and I don't remember specific days or specific weeks or anything. It just kind of go on, and I really hate living that way. So in order to prevent myself from the time that had passed or like regretting that, I try to, you know, not do that, pay more attention, pay closer attention, which I think you can always do no matter where you are. So maybe kind of a general answer, but um, I mean, in college, I lived in a pretty like, it was just like the town there. It was like a 2 mile radius, and that was the town. Outside, there was nothing else to do. And from that, it's like, I mean, it's a college campus, so you have
Yeah.
plenty of resources there to figure things out for yourself. But um, you have less opportunity to uh, do other things that have you learn more about other places and other things too, in the way that you can't really meet people from different cultures and speaking different languages who grew up in completely different ways. And everybody there grew up pretty similarly to me. So,
Right.
and I don't know. I mean, I think that's a great thing to get to do. That's what I love about being in this hostel. Is like everybody's. I mean, they're like mostly like I feel mostly European, but like even that's like that's completely foreign to me right now. Um,
Yeah.
so it's really that's really great to do. I really enjoy that a lot.
Well, I just want to find out one of the things you said in the beginning of your answer, which I thought was a very interesting insight for someone as young as you are, to realize those months that go by when we feel like time has flown by so much that you actually for yourself realize that's not what I want to do. I want to like do things that I remember that I learned something new that are exciting for whatever reason and make them exciting. I think that's a very, very good insight to strive for not just, yeah, whatever amount of time that'll be, like weeks and months without anything noticeable happening. I feel like that's a very, very good goal. And especially, I feel like going abroad and traveling, like you said, we just naturally put ourselves in an environment where there are more impulses, where there are more new and foreign things to us. So that basically keep our minds active as well, because we can always interact with new, exciting, foreign, however you want to call it, things. So do you so far share that experience as well with you while being to Japan, but now more recently to New Zealand? Like, is that the impression you get from being here?
Um, in what way?
Like being in whatever way you you experience it, but just being basically thrown into novel um, things, novel thoughts, novel discussions, rather than when you had it in your college campus? Or do you think it is kind of similar?
In ways it is. I see that, and that's kind of sobering, especially here too. We live so close to the university, and
Right.
I'll go and the young people, especially the guys, like they look really similar. It seems like they're kind of aping, like style on the campus too, which is really funny. Um, in Japan and also here, but Japan especially, I think, your everyday environment is so different,
Mm.
and there's just so much, and especially there too. They they have a couple. There are a couple times where you walk into certain stores, they look kind of, unassuming at first. You go in there and it's a wash, right? It's a fever dream. It's just too much to take in at once, and I think, uh, that helps with it too. I mean, other times it's like it's sometimes, yeah, very there are small changes in the day to day, and then no matter how close you look at it, things are gonna blend together just because there aren't that many things to distinguish a day from one day from another. But here it's like, or when I was there, I would, I don't know, everywhere I went, it was a new thing. But then there was a different thing of like "Oh, well, maybe there's, like, too much going on," and I kinda needed to, like, slow things down in a way. Um, uh, the language barrier was the other thing too, and that I think that kind of encouraged me to, like, it wasn't, maybe it was for the sake of, like, talking with other people. I think I wanted to focus on, um, mm, uh, things that would it would be easier to, like, get across to other people, I feel. Um, Not in any, like, I had to, like, dumb myself down or something like that. It's just, like, that exists with any barrier. You have to find
Course.
common ground, I feel. I find that here too, but especially over there, that was a big thing because English really isn't that common. Um, but yeah, it's the everyday environment, there are, like, little differences, and I love pointing them out. Um, Even just it feels like I'm doing something productive, and it's like, no, I feel like it is, like, to me, it's productive, and I
Right.
enjoy it, so, yeah, I don't know if that answers it, but
It does.
mhm,
Um, but yeah, obviously, Japan was like more of a cultural difference, like way more than New Zealand probably is to the United States.
mm,
Um, so here we always try to give some recommendations to people as well. So from your time in Japan, like what are any things, um, could be anything you think of, food, art, books, like anything you found there that you experienced there that you would say would be interesting to someone to also eat, experience, whatever it might
um, so I stayed about an hour or so west of Tokyo, like, the main ci I mean, Tokyo is a huge city, but I stayed, more specifically in the Western Tama region near the Yokota Air Base, um, uh, in the town of Fusa, but also near, like, Hamura. Like, whenever we talk to people there, they're like, "Oh, Hammer, we know where that is."
be.
But, um, yeah, I think, um, as far as, like, food and things go, because if you're in Tokyo, it's kind of the same pretty much everywhere. Yeah, they have, like, vending machines, hot, cold vending machines everywhere. The train stations, they have food places there, typically. If they're really small, like Higashi Fuso was or some other smaller towns, you'll have maybe a vending machine or something, but the trains always run on time too, is the biggest thing. It's it's amazing. It's amazing to just get on a train. They're relatively cheap too. Um, and just, take a weekend and go somewhere. It's really neat. Um, Food places, I mean, everywhere you go, everywhere you look. Um, I especially liked Yoshinoya's, because they're, like, open late because I mean, it's, like, simple food. I mean, like, I have a lot of, like, dietary restrictions, so it's, like,
Right.
it was really easy for me to go out and find something to eat. Really enjoyed that. Um, I would say, like, you're gonna go to the t to Tokyo, you're probably gonna go, like, Shibuya, Roppongi, Harajuku, Akihabara, like, all those places. Asakusa, like, I mean, they're fun, they're cool, they're touristy, they're neat. Got a lot of stories, you go to Don Quixote, maybe. Um, I would say or, like, Parco, that's, like, the big mall they have there. Um, what else do they have? They have a Uniqlo Bit Camera. They have a Fuji here. What is it? It's like the stationary, like, paper store. We have that. Um, they have a lot of things like that. I would really just, I Daiso is very useful, I think, if you're gonna go. It's like a stationery store. Um, like, convenience stores abound, 7-Eleven. I know they don't have 7-Elevens here in New Zealand, which is really unfortunate, but if you're looking for, like, cheap food, it's everywhere. Cheap and, yummy, like, it's all good.
Right.
It's a lot of that too. I think just Japan is very conducive to just kind of, continuous travel, like going from one place to the next, to the next, to the next. Like, it's really maybe just around the cities and things like that, but, I mean, it's very clean, a lot of really good public transit. You can visit some of the universities, visit the Metropolitan, Museum of Art in Tokyo. Um, while it's going on, uh, what is it? Team Labs, the Team Labs of museum there is really it's really neat, it's a really interactive mm,
Team labs.
Team Labs, yeah, I think it's getting taken down at the end of next year.
Oh,
It's in a warehouse in the middle of nowhere, but it's this really interactive, like, pathway, through different, like, scenery and things like that. You
so
do
it is.
most of it barefoot too.
So it's an artistic
It
experience.
is, yeah, it is, all sorts of stuff there. I think it's really, going to temples, going to Chiyoda, the city in Chiyoda, because there are, like, was it 36 different wards in Tokyo? I mean, there's Tokyo's a big enough city where you could spend a month there and still not see everything you wanna see.
It is a sheer.
Yeah, Japan is massive, I mean, they have everything. They just there's so much there, I mean, I didn't go there if I still wanna go back to pick up on some things that I missed, but I really think I mean, it's what you make of it. Depends on what you wanna see. You wanna go see Fuji? I mean, go for it. They have festivals all the time too. And actually, that's the other thing too. I would suggest you stay maybe somewhere outside of the city because it's easy to get in there
Mm.
and become familiar with the festivals in the area. What is going? Because they have lots of those, especially in the warmer months. Um, in maybe like March, April, May, that's a good time for sakura season. They have plenty of sakura festivals, the cherry blossom trees. Plenty of parks, they have flower festivals, things like that. I think that is the most and I think that's probably a general thing. I think that's probably the most meaningful part of travel is, like, finding what people in that neighborhood are doing, not just,
Yeah.
what's the nearest party in the city or, like, something like that. Like, those things are nice too, but I think this is really that's really unique, and that actually does kind of take some effort to weed out. Um, kind of like a long answer, but I mean, they're just I loved my time there, and I would I hope that everyone gets a chance to at least travel if they really anybody wants to. So,
Sounds great.
mm,
Um, did you actually get to go during that time of the cherry blossom? You did.
I did,
So that
yeah,
must have been very beautiful.
I did. I got there mid-February and I left like early May, so it was right around that time. It kind of goes up towards Hokkaido. It goes up until like later May, in Hokkaido. But around Tokyo, it's around April, and um, we went to the a couple parks in the central, Ueno Park is what we did,
Mhm.
and that was impressive. Like that was amazing. Like people flew in to go see it.
Oh,
And they have like, it's a big festival, they got all sorts of food and stands and things, but, even the smaller ones, like because there were some near closer to where I lived, like, those were a lot better too because they didn't have, like, people coming up, sell food and wine and things like that. Uh, yeah, it's really great, and yeah, the trees are all along the roads there too, so it's not just they only have the festivals around where they have trees, they have trees everywhere, so,
mhm.
um, yeah, I was really lucky to be out during that time. It was a good yeah.
Yeah, I feel like the whole picture of the city, the landscape just changes with like those trees blooming. Like it's a completely different picture, I believe, when they're not. And then when they are, probably, I mean, obviously you have the festivals because of that. Even without the festivals, probably the people's moods are just better. Because I know it from like Portugal, the sun is always shining, people are just happier. So I can imagine the same with you seeing these nice pinkish trees everywhere. You're like, "It's
And it's nice too because that's right before the sun comes out. I mean, like the sun comes out. I mean, it's similar to how it is here, at least just from what I've heard. Because I left before it really got bad, but the summers are really really hard.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, and I've heard the summers are really harsh too because of how thin the atmosphere is here.
Here, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Here, you definitely have to be very careful because of the hole in the ozone layer.
Mhm.
Uh, you're gonna you always need sunscreen
Mhm.
because otherwise, at 20 minutes, you probably sunburn.
Mhm.
Maybe half an hour. But so something around that, like it's really intense. For me, when I arrived here in January in Auckland, that was the first thing I noticed. I was just strolling around and I was like, this is intense. Like
Mhm.
to me, the temperatures themselves weren't like exhaustive because like in Portugal, we reach like 40 degrees in summer as well, like in August. Um, but nonetheless, and it wasn't even 40 degrees then, the intensity of the sun is just really, you can really feel the difference
Mhm.
of that at work. But I mean, I do enjoy warm weather.
Mhm.
I always try to kind of go where the climate there is nice and warm. And Christchurch actually is a little bit cold for me already. And now I'm going down to Queenstown where it only gets colder, but then in general it gets warmer
Mhm.
in October too. So yeah. Um so we are in New Zealand now. So I mean part of the working holiday and having time here in New Zealand is just not really having too big of a plan, I reckon. But do you have general plan of what you want to get out of the year in general, or what you want to experience? Like any plans after Christchurch, or what you want to do?
I would like to go fruit picking in the summer. I think that would be the best time to do it, and it's something I want to do anyways. And there's the other part about how you can extend your visa by doing that for 3 months. I may not end up doing that. I may not end up doing it for 12 weeks. Either way, it's just something I'd like to try. And then ideally, maybe go around the South Island, kind of go down towards Eden, and then go back up on the West Coast to see, because I would like to see the glaciers, Mount Cook, you
Right.
know. Um, I was looking at jobs at in Fox Glacier actually, like
Mm,
to go and take like when I was in, because I flew into Auckland, I stayed there for a week, and that's when I was looking for everything. But um, that's kind of what I wanted to hit up first, see that. Um, live like near Greymouth, I think that'd be okay, and then wrap around again. Go up towards, Marlborough and then go back towards the North Island, because there I really only stayed in I stayed in Auckland, and then I took a bus down to Wellington, and, yeah, I mean, that's all I really saw, so I'd like to see more. Really just see as much as the island as I can, or as much of the island as I can. And then,
right.
Queenstown would be cool to visit. I mean, all the big spots, even just for a little bit. That's also what's nice about this too, is like, if I don't like a certain place, I can just pick up my things and leave. Um, which is kind of the general plan after I leave Christchurch. I do want to settle in for a little while and figure a couple things out. But after that, I'll, when it gets warmer, as because I love warm weather too. I mean,
Yeah.
that's when I'm more interested in doing outdoors work. Um, so yeah. I think it'll be good. Again, I don't really have a general plan, but when things come up, you know, I'll um I'll decide whether or not they're a good idea. Uh, I'll just follow my nose really.
Yeah. I feel one of the obvious sides of doing outdoor work here in New Zealand is obviously fruit picking, farm work, stuff like that is generally hard work because you're outside, you'll be standing all day, you'll be moving around, uh, stuff like that. But you're in this beautiful nature that surrounds you. A friend of mine, he also he's doing farm work, and he always takes videos of him like going with the cattle, with the herd, and in the background you can just see the mountains and all of that. So it's like I feel like it is kind of makes it easier to be surrounded by the nice landscapes, and then yeah, especially in summer when you're not and it's not freezing cold as well. I think that makes it more enjoyable to do
Yeah.
those kind of jobs here rather than I would say do something similar back in Germany or maybe even back in Georgia, Alabama. I don't know how beautiful the landscape is there if it's rather like flat. Like I honestly don't know how to design it.
Yeah, there's some parts that are really neat, and in Georgia, like, especially, I think they have 4 canyons, like, major canyons, and I personally, like, I've always been really fascinated by canyons because I love rock climbing too, and the idea that it goes down instead of up is really interesting to me.
Hmm.
But there's some, and, we're the north part of the state is at the foothills of the Appalachian Trail, which those are old mountains too. I mean, they're round. It's pretty flat up there, actually. Well, the trail itself isn't flat. There are some parts you have to scramble up, but, um, they have a couple gorges. There are parts of Georgia that are just absolutely beautiful. The same thing with Alabama too. I mean, it is mostly pretty flat, mostly rural and uninter uninhabited, but,
Okay,
I
right.
mean, that's even better. I mean, that's honestly it's real nice. They have really pretty skies, too. Sunsets are really nice. So, a lot of really good spots for camping, I think. Outdoor work, maybe not, I don't know. For New Zealand, I feels like there's such a variety of nature that you can really anything you'd want to do, um, hoping that there's nature around you to supplement it is great. Um, if that makes sense, like, there are more things you can do if you're using that as, like, a reason to do it, I think. So, that's at least how I feel. Like, everything I've ever heard about this place is that the nature it's one of the most beautiful countries on earth. It doesn't sometimes it doesn't make sense how things are formed, like, especially on the West Coast, it's like, you have a glacier, and then you have a rainforest, and then you have a beach, like, all within 20 kilometers of each other. It's like,
Yeah.
I don't quite understand how that happens, but, um, not even just that, but it's everywhere. So, really just it would be nice to see some of that. Even in Christchurch, I mean, I go where, um some of the trails here are amazing, and the fact that they have sheep pens and around
Yeah.
like, no, I really love that. I like to hear the sheep's, like, baaing when I'm, like, hiking up, and the trails aren't that strenuous at all. They're very, very wide. They're very good trails. So, if that holds for the rest of the country, then I'm in for a treat. So,
Yeah.
mhm.
Yeah, I definitely felt that way from the second I got here as well. That the Kiwi people, I believe, are really, well, firstly, very respectful of the nature around them, but then also just are really good at keeping that connection, having all these trails and Kiwi people in general are all pretty nature loving and they enjoy going hiking, doing their outdoorsy things. So yeah, I feel as a people, they have as much as you, of course, can in a very industrialized, globalized world that we live in right now. I feel like they have a really good grasp on keeping that connection with nature and really living in a good balance with nature. Or
Mhm. I get that impression as well, and that's really neat to see. It feels great. I mean, there's so much that the land has to offer too. I feel it's like it would be foolish not to accept that and embrace it and try to integrate yourself with it. So I love to see that.
correct. Um, so going back a little bit to your overall goal with learning, being curious, stuff like that. Um, what in your personal life are hobbies, topics that you are interested in, that you are trying to, well, I'm going to say master along your life? Like, what are things that you put effort in to finding out more about doing as a hobby, stuff like that?
Um, well, there are things I like purely for like the personal enjoyment of them. Like that's kind of how I see music as. Like I always hated performing. Like I really didn't like performing. I really just enjoyed playing music for myself. Um,
Sounds like you did some performing though. If you
I
said you
did.
didn't like it.
Yeah, I never liked it. No, that's not true. I mean, I did like it sometimes. Playing as an orchestra, that was really neat.
Oh,
Um, I have some really good memories of that. Um, but I never and I did like chamber performances too, but that's like those are always more intimate. Chamber music is always which is why I like those performances, but like solo recitals I never liked. Um, I don't even really like playing for other people unless it's like a collaborative thing we're doing.
mm,
Like we're making music together. It's it's not just like, oh, here I'm gonna play this, Bach partita for you. Um, no, I never really liked that. So in general, it's more just I like playing music for myself, and that's really nice. Um, Same with like I studied math in college. I've actually I'm the part of the travel is I'm kinda eager to get away from it for a little while, but, um, I think math is very solitary, and, it's kinda hard to work on problems together, at least, like, for me it is, I think,
right.
and so but that's always something that I think it has enormous, how do I say, like, benefits in lots of ways, not just, it's gonna make you, like, better at solving problems or something. I think it's very fulfilling if you can find a to work out a problem for yourself. Just mathematical thinking, I think, is really useful to me. Um, that's really neat. I would like to learn languages now. I'd like to pivot sort of to doing that. I really regret, and especially in Japan, I regret when I got there. I regretted not having like taken some courses in Japanese before getting there. Just because like no one spoke English at all. I really wished I could sort of like you know have a better way of communicating with other people, and that I would be able to understand what they were trying to say to me. Um, and because for a while I was really I was pretty sick growing up. There isn't I thought I'd never be able to travel or go anywhere. And in America, you don't really need to know a second language at all. I mean, the
No,
stereotype is true. Some places Spanish is pretty neat, but like no, English, you're fine for life. You don't have to do any of that. And even going abroad to some place, like, yeah, you could get by with only knowing English. It's fine. But I feel that no, I think it's like part of it is it's neat in and of itself to learn a language, but then it's also something that you can use and share with other people too. Which is, the great part about it. And you can also in whatever capacity you would like to know it, like, if you just wanna know how to read it, then you can read things written in the original language. You wanna learn how to speak it just so you can, speak conversational, whatever language you're doing, or you wanna have it for business, which is a great asset to have for sure. Um, you can do it at your own pace, and it's all good, and I don't know. I think I'm very keen on doing that now, and I would like to do that for the next little while. Be a nice project to have. Um, and then also, like, if you're around people who speak that language, I think that's a very, very, very good way of learning it. You're already friends with them, and they feel that they can critique you without, being a fear of being too harsh and like pushing you away or something like that. It's really just as a friend,
yeah.
they're helping you out, trying to accomplish this personal goal. So.
I think that is the best way to learn a new language.
Mhm.
Well, at least, I mean, I think it is the best, but for sure it is the easiest as well because you cannot learn a language. You can learn a lot from books, you can learn a lot on your own, studying grammar, studying vocabulary, and you have to do these kind of things on your own. But really, like not even mastering, but becoming better in the command of the language, you need to have conversations with native speakers. You need to surround yourself by that language. And when I say it's the easiest way, I mean like it's probably like at first the hardest because you're putting yourself in a situation where you kind of have to speak the language. Like let's say when you go to Japan, you're going there with the goal of speaking Japanese. You're surrounded by Japanese, so you kind of forced to understand. So by that I mean it's easier because you have no other choice. So your brain kind of has to adapt and you have to try to learn it. And if you're already willing to, I think that is the best way to go at it. And then just speaking it every day, exposing yourself to people that speak it and that can correct you on the spot, like you said. Yeah, I think uh, that's the best way. And for me, I have to say, from my experiences learning different languages, it really has another upside as well. Like you said with mathematics, just being able to solve these problems can radiate into like other aspects of your life as well, and just give you some more logical thinking and other perspective or like areas of life. And I feel like learning a language and being able to hold conversations in different languages also gives you even more insight into other cultures because language is basically the biggest or one of the big parts of cultures. So with learning new languages, you expose yourself more and more to other cultures, also kind of changing your own mind a little bit and making like, yeah, making changes in your own mind and your own thinking processes. And therefore, yeah, I think having a big impact on how you approach life in general.
Are you familiar with like the Sapir Whorf hypothesis? Have you ever heard of that?
I don't think so.
It's the idea that our cognitive perceptions of the world are formed by our language, the
Really?
language that we use.
What
And
was the
so,
name of that?
Sapir-Whorf
Sepia Wolf.
hypothesis. Um, it's since been like it was kind of thrown out when Chomsky came around with syntactic structures, and um, but it's still like a neat idea to play around with, and it seems like you would kind of gel with it too. It's like you are changing um your mind and to operate along those lines to see how like words are formed and see how people like articulate, meaning and how they try to express things to one another, the different ways they go about doing that, and then the practices that are directly associated with like talking, and then like meal times are I think are a big part of that too because I think during meals you'll typically talk or you won't
Mhm.
talk, and like those are or hold
Right.
conversation. I think those are both
Right.
meaningful. And so I think those connections are undeniable, but I don't think it'll come down to like a very, minute, cognitive details. Maybe that's a little uncertain. Um, it's I don't know. I think it's neat. I think it's definitely true. And that's another thing where you won't really be able to do that unless you go abroad and or like it's harder to meet people, from different cultures without going abroad. Because you go there that you have a
Yeah.
is just plain statistically greater chance of meeting someone. You could probably come to New Zealand and meet a bunch of American accents. Like I could,
Right.
and I would feel like right at home. And I'd see a few differences in like architecture and geography maybe,
Mm.
but we'd be speaking the same kind of English too. We'd be living in
Yeah.
this in similar ways maybe. Um, so and then that too, it's like personal choice because there are also places where I think I've read some statistic, it's like 92% of people here speak English fluently, which means 8% of people don't. So it's like
Right.
you could go to those places probably, in just Maori. And
Yeah.
you could live in that way too if you really wanted to, and you'd have a completely different experience doing that. Plenty of other countries where there's a motley of different languages, like Singapore especially. Um, Not even just that, but yeah, like anywhere else really. So I think that's you can only kind of get those things by going abroad. And because of that, because I have this whole thing of wanting to, accomplish this goal, I think going abroad is really necessary. Is a necessity to like travel and do that sort of thing. And so, yeah, I guess that's maybe a more specific part of that general goal is I'd like to like learn more languages, either just for myself or for other people. I'm not sure in what capacity I'd like to be able to speak them.
Right.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. I feel like, yeah, I agree with that hypothesis as well because I was
Hmm.
just in my head. I was just thinking about, I mean, undeniably, there are cultural differences in every country. So, um, coming from Germany to Portugal, like the society as a whole, as a general, is just so much more open, like so much more um, like a big family, kind of compared to the German society. And obviously, that is my subjective opinion, but I feel like most people would agree with that. And I feel like you really sense that in the way the language is spoken as well, like Portuguese, which is similar to Spanish, but is not the same thing.
Mm,
Um, is just much more melodic language. It's just sounds happier in all of its facets. Like you said, like the language kind of dictates how we perceive it. Like well, it's like the chicken and the egg or hen and the egg kind of thing. What comes first? Yeah, there's definitely think correlation, and those are the languages and countries I've been to, and there's so many more that I have no idea about yet. So to me, that's a very very interesting point of just having like more languages in your arsenal to see broader picture of the world, uh, basically. So yeah, I think that's a goal that would be beneficial to a lot of people, in my opinion, just to broaden your horizons and just seeing what more is out there. Because probably, especially for um, people from English speaking countries, because I had kind of the same topic with Dave from Australia as well. Um, and you just mentioned it as well. Growing up in the United States, there is no necessity to learn a second language, right? Like most people will uh, go through their life and will never need to learn another language. But that just because it isn't necessary, it is still very beneficial, I would think. So even if you stay in the United States for all of your life, and I don't know if you agree, but I would say everyone should at least learn one secondary language just to again get get that thing started in their head.
yeah, and it's also I don't know, like, I mean, I knew some people who, like, they grew up and they had to go to, like, Latin class too. They went to a
Mhm.
private typically private schools, they have that. I mean, it's a dead language. No one's learning Latin to speak Latin.
Right.
They're learning it just, for the sake of learning it really, and because it I don't know, maybe it was used in a lot of philosophical or mathematical texts, scientific texts, something like that, but then also because, um, romance languages for sure.
Mm.
And its utility in learning other languages. But then it's also like I know other people who learn Spanish because they grew up around a lot, you know, ESL households, things like that.
Mm.
Um, and it's awesome, you know? That has greater utility for sure because then you're able to communicate more effectively. Um, I like to talk to my brother about it a lot because he's through his work, he's trying to learn, uh, Spanish just so I can, like, help him more with, like, Spanish-speaking customers and things like that. He's really interested in learning lots of languages as well. Um, for the sake of it too. I mean, the area we grow up in, it's absolutely not a necessity. So and yeah, I think part of it too, it's a neat mental exercise, and part of it too, it can have great utility. Um, you can just get really lucky and come across somebody who speaks that language, and that's great. I think it's yeah, and you'll see this. I think it's really neat to see the similarities, similar words between two languages. That's how I see it with German for sure. Like I think that's really neat. I love to see that, and I love to be able to like, oh well, this is probably what this I'm reading that. So
Right.
yeah, but
I feel like I don't know if it actually is a quote or maybe I'm making it up right now. But when you just mentioned luck, you said you might
mhm.
just get lucky and run into someone. I feel like it is a quote. Well, it's a something. um, I heard somewhere like luck is like when an opportunity arises and you are ready for it. So I feel like we can make our own luck in kind of just preparing ourselves, right? And like a lot of the things that we talked about, whatever topic it might be, gathering knowledge in a lot of different topics, different areas can make us ready for whatever comes across. Because I feel like I also heard that from your answers, um, that you're a very flexible person as well when it gets to like whatever might happen in the future, 3 years, 5 years, even 10 years from now. Um, all these things will just naturally develop. So is that kind of also part of it, just making yourself ready and like having a broad arsenal of knowledge to just be able to take part in like whatever opportunity comes towards
Yes, I think. I think in a similar vein, you can also be rather unlucky. Um, but with I think with knowledge too, I think typically more often than not, you're luckier. But it also depends on what it is. I mean, if you lack a lot of experience, say you have a lot of knowledge on how to like make money and
it.
sustain that money, but you don't have a lot of knowledge on how to use that money too. And then say you have enough money to where now your position is enviable to a lot of people and you're very susceptible to like being scammed, more susceptible than you would be if you didn't have any money. Um,
Correct.
so then you go through with that, you get scammed, you say, "Oh, I'm so unlucky." It's like, well, I don't know if that's necessarily a great answer along with that. It's like I think with that's how it can go. I think as you accumulate more and more and more, then you would have yeah, I think certain opportunities will present themselves to you that otherwise wouldn't be available. But then also like there are opportunities available to people that don't have a lot of knowledge in certain fields that are unavailable to people who have more knowledge in those fields. And but that's part of it too. I don't think there's a direct correlation. It's impossible to say. And I think that's you know, if life were like that, then I would just be following the same path that any other person following. And it's like, no, I think by doing this, like it's meaningful to me, not in the sense that I'm you know, preparing myself or like I'm trying to safeguard myself against being duped or anything like that,
Mhm.
which is like, you know, that's like the skeptical mentality. If you ask a skept, like they're going to do the same thing. They want to find absolute truth, really, which isn't what I'm looking for. I didn't say that I was looking for that. But it would be to really safeguard themselves from being like duped in that way and sort of like weeding out those like unlucky opportunities that would come out. I think there's going to be plenty of that that comes along. It's just hard to I don't I like, you should be able to like, I think part of you should be able to discern, like, bits and pieces of it, but other times it's just not certain, like business ventures for sure. you can have a good feeling about something, and then
Mm,
it would just, statistically, it's more likely than not to, go bust. So if that's, if you're, holding that in your head, then you would never do something like that. But then you would never feel lucky by it, or like feel the luck that would come from investing in something and having it succeed. So it's not, I think, and I feel like I was talking about this with you a little bit last night, but it's not just recklessness or, brazenness or anything like this. It's, there are things that kind of synthesize within you that you cannot really articulate. And I think that just comes from learning more. I think that's, you know, heuristically, I think that's probably true. And you would want to follow along with that. And that's at least the way that I see it. And that's where the luck comes from. I think that luck too, and this is a little long winded, but it comes from like, you don't know how that opportunity came to you. Like,
yeah.
you can sit there and try and, write it out and explain it to yourself. But either way, it's the same thing. Like, I don't know how this happened to me, this really great bout of fortune. Um, but you also can't wait for something like that. I think waiting for that to happen will like it will, ironically, it will preclude that thing from happening, almost certain. And it just makes your current time, less enjoyable. It'll make those months, blur together, so on and so forth. So, yeah.
No, I love
Yeah.
that answer actually.
Yeah.
A
Yeah.
lot of that, uh, well, probably all of it, but at least most of it, I wholeheartedly agree with as well. Um, I don't know if that question is too general as well, because I feel like you can portray it to a lot of different areas again. But you mentioned, when you mentioned the skeptics,
Mhm.
said that they would go looking for an absolute truth.
Mhm.
So I know it's a very general question, but do you personally believe something like that exists? A absolute.
Um, not something like perceivable to us. I think we can get bits and pieces of it, but I don't think there's no, I don't think there's some absolute truth. Not available to us.
So you would say like the humankind is not really capable of making an objective, because that's basically what it boils down to, right? If there would be that absolute truth for humankind, we would all, as a general objectively, have to agree on it, more or
Mhm.
less. And yeah, that seems rather unrealistic.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, obviously, if you really want to look at it that philosophically, uh, like it could still be possible that it's there, and we are just, because obviously we're very great animal. We're conscious. We can do a lot of things that zebras can do. Zebras can build huts and build civilizations.
Mhm.
But who are we to think that we are the best kind of living form? So maybe we are just not able to uh, grasp that truth. So with that being said, I kind of do believe that some things are just not really right or wrong. So maybe the word truth is also the wrong word here, but I feel like some things are meant to be in a specific way, it as a general in the universe. But yeah, maybe we are not the species to make that decision, or like being able to grasp what that might be.
Yeah. Well, we agree then. That's how I feel as well. We're ill-equipped to do that sort of thing. I don't think we can really like, hammer down a set of objective truths or anything like that. Um, that's all up to belief, really. It's our, will to believe and like the permissibility of belief, things like that. Um, yeah, that's a tough question. I mean, you're German, you should like, should be rattling up Kant to me. Like, no, it's silly. But uh
Yeah, I mean, in the beginning of the podcast, there were actually some more philosophical questions on here as well, but we kind of didn't go into too much of these topics because we just had great talks in general.
yeah.
But I just heard absolute truth, so I just felt like going in there for a second.
No, go for it. That's awesome. That's a good question.
um, but yeah, maybe on another note, we already discussed your like your personal goal, um, because that is a question that I actually asked in some of the podcasts. What you think, and maybe if it just doubles your goal, then that's fine. But what do you believe makes a life meaningful? Like, what gives a human person, because we are human, what gives a human a meaning in life? What things make a life?
Earnestness, being truthful to yourself. Um,
That's a good.
yeah, I think that's the only way it can be, I think. And, um, what makes it meaningful? I think, yeah, because I mean, yeah, you could have a meaningful life and to somebody else, I guess, by, putting up a facade and doing something like that, or, cheating your way to the top and exercising control over a lot of people. And in a way, you would have more meaningful effect on more people than somebody didn't do that. You probably could, but I don't think your life would be like inherently more meaningful because of that. I think earnestness and adherence to your own the parts of yourself which are inexplicable, maybe. That's how you find it really, like listening to yourself. Um, and then also just not trying to fake your way through things. I think you always end up regretting that. I don't think that um I don't believe that like all like even though like all may be permitted, you can it is okay to like cheat your way to the top and do something like that. I don't You shouldn't do that because that's insincere to yourself. Um that's the only like meaningful safeguard against that sort of thing I can find. Um and then from that, assuming that others feel the same. And even if they don't feel the same, you realize that you hold fast and true to that. That's how you outlast it. I think that's the most meaningful life you can and adhering to that, and you don't become like facetious or insincere later on. Um, that's a very hard question to answer, but I think that's like
You're actually
yeah,
one of the persons who actually tried to answer the question.
yeah,
I
really.
don't know if it ever made it into the final cut of any of the episodes.
Mhm.
You actually, yeah, you actually answered it, which I'm very happy with. That you actually answered it. Great. I think.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a. I mean, that's hard. That's at least like what I would try to do. But I guess the reason it's so hard to answer really is it's like a lot of people maybe would say like, well, like what would make a life like meaningless then? Like you lived a meaningless life. I don't really think it's like well just because like I look to eschew like nihilism everywhere I go. I think that's you absolutely have to do that if you're interested in being alive, like cultivating life in other people. You should do that. Um Maybe kind of like a strong opinion on that, but because of that, you should assume then that all life is like it is inherently meaning in one way or another. So, and then if you believe that, it's really hard to answer the question. So, but,
But
yeah,
what I also like about that answer is because especially nowadays in a like entrepreneurial or like business kind of context, what you said, like we hear that a lot, like fake it until you make it, like as a kind of recipe to success. So whatever that would mean in that specific context, but I would also agree that obviously just because you have money, success, whatever comes with you taking it in your business, in your entrepreneurial phase, does not make your life more meaningful, like, because you are taking it. So yeah, um, yeah, earnestness. That's a good one. I'm actually personally also interested because I do a lot of meditation. I also try to be very mindful in my everyday being, trying to always be there in the present, not letting my mind slip into the past or the future, and just really being in the moment I am. And you also said something along those lines of trying to figure out who you are, staying true to that self. Um, so, is there a specific, uh, like, are there some processes that you do? Is there like a habit you have to help you in that endeavor, or is that just something you just think about every now and then? Is that,
Yeah, I would like I guess I would defer like Descartes with first principles. I think that that actually really helps. It's a useful meditative exercise. Um, what is it that I know, you know, or who am I? What is my physical being? Like things like that.
right?
Maybe not in like, you know, those concrete terms. Maybe that sometimes helps. But then it's also um I met a friend when I visited Great Barrier. She was really interested in yoga, and meditation as well, and she had a lot of breathing exercises that she did. She was really, really fascinated with that sort of thing because it's like, I mean, you're going your thinking will change as you continue to breathe and focus solely on your breaths. Um, talking to yeah, that was really meaningful. So doing those sort of things to keep yourself like ground like physically, I am here right now. This is what's around me. Um, And I think you really do have to do that, otherwise you just dissociate and lose touch from what's around you, and, you don't wanna let your, like, mind sometimes it's neat, but you and it's a useful exercise to let your mind escape from your body when you're in duress or physical pain. It makes it feel better, it makes it feel like your mind is unscathed, and you don't need to do that all the time, especially after like going through some kind of physical trauma or mental trauma too. You do want to kind of be able to like hold yourself in a way, not maybe both physically and like mentally too. Otherwise, like if you leave that connection like damaged, it'll eventually sever completely, and then that's disastrous. It's really hard to recover from that. I really think so. So you should focus again, I think, physically with the breathing, but then mentally as well with affirmations or whatever you want to say. I think talking yourself through it is really neat. So I don't know if you do something similar or
Uh, well, actually, one of the things I think I've also said it on one of the podcasts is that I would love to do more journaling, but I don't. So I had like phases in my life where I did some journaling, like just active reflection on paper, for a couple of months, but I haven't been doing it for years. So that's one of the things I always feel like would help me a lot, but I just can't get back into that habit of like, yeah, journaling, just actively um putting down my thoughts on paper, like actively also like looking at the path, like having records of, okay, this is the progress and stuff like that. Because I really believe this can be and is helpful to people. Um, so yeah. I probably should get started,
Mhm.
get into that habit. But for me, um, most of the things really is just being mindful. So I'm very detached of thoughts in general. That just sound like I'm stupid.
Yeah, we
But,
will.
but no, it's like I'm not really having active thoughts when I go through my daily life. I just like um again, I don't do it in written form, which I think I also should do because it would help me even more to stay disciplined. But I have that like mental to do thing. Like I know what the things are I need to, or not need, but I want to get done. But I kind of formulate it as a need to because I know that I'm a very undisciplined person. So I know that I want to do these things, but I also know if I give myself the choice to do them, I probably won't, and then I will regret it. So I'll kind of say, okay, this needs to be done today. And then I'm happy afterwards that I did it. So I kind of know what I want to do during the day, but then it all just flows. Then it basically just happens. So yeah, that's kind of it for me. Just going with the things at the moment, but yeah, not really discerning or journaling about them before or afterwards.
Yeah, I I agree with that. I think that's another step too. Once you are grounded, and once you know where you are, and now maybe you know what you're capable of, and now you're starting to like try those things out a little bit. And that's it's a neat exercise to do too. It's like um see what you can and can't do, what you try to accomplish in a day. I mean, for yourself, I think like it, it's a lot of different ways. Like not grinding yourself into the ground either. It should never be that way, I think. Um, because I mean that's not very mindful at all, I think. And it shouldn't be performative either. I think journaling, I mean to shake that, but it's also it's something that should be kind of like private and kept to yourself. I think being able to have that, which is one thing about your thoughts and your mind and everything. It's like, no one can read your mind. That's another thing too,
Yeah.
like, is to tell yourself, like, nobody can read your mind. You should tell yourself that, like, no one can read your mind. I think that's actually a useful meditative exercise. And then also with a journal too, yeah, I mean, it's something that's kept to yourself. Um, so I think it is very useful. Like there have been times in my life where I've done that for different things. Like I did that when I played violin, especially like
Mm,
just writing down notes for that, but then also like getting because there's like a mental aspect to that for playing music, I think. And sometimes you need it more than you do other times. So, but yeah, I'd be eager to hear how that goes for you. Yeah.
I shall start tomorrow morning
Okay. Cool. Go for it.
or evening. I
Yeah.
feel like yeah, because I kind of have my days planned out more or less already. I know like the things I want to do. I know I'm doing my sports in the morning. I know I'm learning a little bit of Spanish. I know I'm reading my book. Like I know these things. I think like at the moment, the evening reflection would probably be more helpful for my overall days than like a morning to do thing or whatever. Like because that's how I feel it is. In the morning, you're kind of looking forward to the day, and then in the evening, if you were journal, you would reflect on the day. Um, maybe there's other ways you can do it. It's how it makes sense to me in my head. So yeah, I feel like the reflective part, the moment would be most.
Mm, definitely.
Um, but as we or at least as I like your answers to my hard questions. I
Mhm.
don't know if you like the hard questions, but since I like the answers,
Oh,
um,
good.
I'll go with another one, which is, in your opinion, what do you think that society, or the world in general, what do you think the society needs or what do you think is helpful for society? Can, can be basically specific mindset, a specific like thought, like or an emotion. Like, what do you think people would need right now?
Mm, I would think trust. I would
Trust.
think, yeah. Or and beyond that, I think it's and this I don't want this to be like cynical because I don't feel this way, but I think people above all else they require security, like I mean, there's like the hierarchy of needs and everything like that,
Mm.
but physical security would be of utmost importance to a lot of people. I think without that, people just legitimately lose their mind. And they all well, I mean, they also just don't wanna live there too in a place that's unsafe. I don't think anybody would wanna live in
Right.
a place that's unsafe. I I can understand why you would want to, like, it is stimulating, yes, to do that. But then it's only stimulating if it's not like, that unsafe. What I'm saying, because if it's that unsafe, you're gonna be concerned with just defending yourself all the time, and then you
Right.
can't live your own life. Um, I think trust and security are, like, I'm just absolutely important. You would need those for a society, and then the way that you work those out, I'm ill-equipped to answer how you would do that, but I think you should focus on that, security without restricting people's understanding that you will need to restrict or that people will need to cede, like, personal freedoms in order to facilitate that, but understanding, like, the necessity of doing so. Um, I mean, because it's one thing to be really you can be really safe just living by yourself in the middle of nowhere, and you have all the freedoms to do whatever you like, but if we're gonna put a bunch of people together, we can't necessarily do that, like, so, that would be kind of the general thing, but I think that would be something to strive for. I don't know, um, how necessarily how we would get to get to that place, but, um, that, that's, for other people to decide for sure. Further deliberation is required, but yeah, I think that was what I don't know, just like going to Japan, I think I was really shocked at that. I mean, you could walk around in the city by yourself at like 4 in the morning. I did that once or twice, and absolutely no threat of danger at all. The biggest threat is like walking into some place that trying to like invite you in. Like, I
Right.
mean, but that's a threat. Um, and maybe that's a bigger threat there because you assume that everybody's nice when not everybody is kind. Um, and I was like, oh, well, how can we make it like? But then Japan has their own problems in a different way. Um, and any society, we would have different problems. Any society would have different problems than it currently has if it kind of things over. But I think like it's better to have those problems where this isn't a problem than the other way around. Like having security and trust issues within a society, it's just going to crumble. I think um, always being worried that someone's going to backstab you, like you can't live like that. So I wouldn't want to live in a place like that at all. In a way, I'd want to find a place where I feel that's has the least lowest likelihood of happening. So I don't know. That's how I feel. But
One thing again I found interesting about your answer, and I don't know again if you can go into it because you might not be, like you said, well equipped enough to answer. So that's fine as well. But I feel like what I heard there for a second when you were talking about security, and then you came towards personal freedoms, and just by personal interpretation, as I heard a little bit of Second Amendment in there. But
yeah,
just in general, obviously the United States, compared to other countries, is very big on personal freedom. So you already like nuanced that in your answer. Like that is basically a compromise, or that is where you have to find a balance, right? That works for society is safety versus personal freedoms. And do you think like the emphasis in the United States on personal freedoms contributes to making it maybe a little bit more insane.
Yes, I think so. A lot of issues come about because of that. Um, yeah, people always decrying that their rights are being infringed upon. Yeah, it's sad to see that, it is, because there are times when people's rights are infringed upon and no one cares, and there are times where it's just, "Oh, I can make us think about it, and everybody's gonna see." 'Cause that's
Yeah.
what it is, that's like the least American thing is giving up your rights, really. Um, or, not or like, though, one of the most American things for sure is, like, personal freedoms and personal liberty, the personal pursuit of happiness and fulfillment and those things. And I think that's all fine and good, but I mean, there should be, at the very least, a gentleman's agreement that you're not gonna try and screw one another over. You're not gonna screw other people over on your pursuit to happiness or something. It's that's I don't think that's too much to ask at all. You have the ability to do wrong, but you choose not to. You have the ability to screw somebody over, and you choose not to. And yeah, that's gonna infringe on your personal freedoms to, like, again, rise to the top, um, stepping over the skulls of other people. Um, but I mean, that's, yeah, fine if you want to do that. Again, maybe that's not, that won't exist in America, maybe ever, because that's, antithetical to the American ethos, but a pretentious way of saying that. But in other places, I have seen that work. So I think those places are typically just, I would prefer to live in a place like that. And if it has to get to the point where I should leave America and go live in a place like that, then yeah. I do. That's not to say that I don't, like, think, yes, like, the Constitution is a very important document. The First Amendment is of an immense importance. I feel that it's misinterpreted on both sides, like,
Mm.
all too often. And that's just awful. I mean, you should be familiar with it. Like, you should be familiar with what a unique document this is. It's a pretty fascinating read. Yeah. So I don't know. That's what I have to say. I wouldn't chalk it all up to that, but yeah. Uh, yeah. Yeah.
No, because you're the first American I have on here, so I felt
Not very
like,
many here. Yeah.
yeah, well, maybe we're gonna have Gina on in the future
Mm,
when she comes back from Thailand.
right.
Um, but yeah, oh, actually, I just lied, because
Mm,
well, this week, so people can go back into the history to see when this was recorded. But this week, Friday, Adam's podcast is gonna come out, and he's from the States. He's from Minnesota.
oh,
So
yeah, Adam. Yeah.
we basically talked about only his travel by bike. So we didn't really get into a lot of uh these discussion points like we just did. So yeah, we didn't really talk about anything like that. You met Adam when
I
he was
did,
little.
yeah, I met Adam.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's cool.
yeah, he was such a great guy. Well, he
Mhm.
is. He is.
Yeah, he still is, yeah,
He's still out there doing this thing.
yeah.
Um, all right. Um, Maybe one other topic that I want to get into that we also are always very happy for recommendations
Mhm.
um, is books. So I know that you have read a lot. Um, so is it possible for you to narrow it down to one? Because I always ask my guests, like, if there is one book that you personally had like biggest impact on that, like that you took something from, whatever that may be, um, what book would that be that you would recommend to other.
I would say, like, for this podcast and, like, for you especially, I think you'd really like this, and, as an American too, it is an American novel in a way. It would be Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance by Robert Pirsig. I think
Oh,
that's yeah. Like, for sure, I think it'd be perfect for listeners to this podcast and you as well.
I heard of that book.
Yeah,
I have not read it, but I've heard
yeah.
of
It's a great read. It's It follows a father and his son's, motorcycle journey through the, northern United States, like, through the Dakotas and everything. It's
Mhm.
really neat. But then it's also his own discussion of, objectivity and subjectivity and meaning and quality. It's like a discussion of quality, like, how do we find quality in things? Um,
Right.
so, yeah, it's great, you should read it for sure. If you're into travel too, I mean, it's a good travelogue too.
Yeah.
A lot of philosophy, a lot of really neat really neat stuff.
Sounds like a good fit
Yeah, for
for you.
sure, yeah.
All right. So in that case, let's say we had a very good conversation. Thank you much, Aiden,
Thank you.
and enjoy the rest of your day.
Or take care.
Bye, everyone.